Today I'm just going to be discussing what in the first few days have ended up being the top legends of Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion for Hearthstone. So, if we take a look, the first thing we'll notice is that the blowout card of this expansion is not a legend, it is Ultimate Infestation, the epic for Druid. And so that's going to inform some of the things I'm about to say. The Ultimate Infestation is the defining card of Druid with a whopping 67% win rate in the first few days. So this is the deck that people have been raving about in forums, and it really reflects that in the numbers. And so, but generally a lot of people are probably concerned about crafting legends at the moment, since you can't open more than one legend duplicate, right? So it's kind of safer to craft legends first and then hope that you'll actually open epics going into the future. Especially if you're a free-to-play player or a low-investment player, I guess you could say. So the result of this is that Malfurion ends up being one of the highest win rate legends of this expansion. But if we notice, the played win rate of Malfurion is much lower, 10% lower than the played win rate of Ultimate Infestation. So even though Malfurion is a very safe craft at the moment, he's not actually essential for Ramp Druid, which is the deck that's blowing people away. Ultimate Infestation is. So Malfurion is still a good craft because he is playable in that very popular deck, but he's not essential for the deck. And so that's something to bear in mind when crafting him. Now, nothing else is going to be too close to this deck right now in the first few days. But we're still probably, things will settle in time. But I'll go ahead and jump down to the second highest win rate legend, which is Thrall Deathseer. So something to clarify about this, the difference between Thrall and Malfurion is that I would actually say that in some ways Thrall is a safer craft than Malfurion, because there's not going to be the risk that you're not going to play Thrall if you're playing a token Evolved Shaman, or really playing Shaman in ladder. There's a chance you might consider cutting Malfurion from your Ramp Druid deck. I don't think you would. This is still a very good card. But you're definitely not going to cut Thrall, right? If you compare it to Evolve, which is the other essential card for this deck, or Doppelgangster, this big combo, these are hovering at 56% win rate for the deck and 53% for the played win rate. And Thrall is not a huge improvement in the same way that Ultimate Infestation is for a Druid, but he's still a noticeable improvement. 56% here and 54% for the played. So in my mind, Thrall is probably the safest craft if you're interested in playing Standard from Knights of the Frozen Throne, because you're never going to cut him from an Evolved Shaman deck. Now, if we come down a bit, we do see Uther of the Ebon Blade. And so he's at 55%, so this would make him seem like he's the third best legend of the set. But one thing I want to observe here is that compared to Tyrion, Tyrion is a 56% win rate in Paladin decks with 56% in played. Of course, I do want to clarify here that this is from the last 14 days of Hearthstone replay data, so it's not just from the last few days. Maybe that's skewing the data. It's certainly possible. But my impression is that decks that include Uther are just slightly worse than than other Paladin decks, right? If you're playing Murlocs, if you're playing Vilefin Inquisitor, and maybe you're running Sunkeeper Tarim, your deck is probably going to actually be more competitive than a deck running Uther of the Ebon Blade. So, for that reason, I don't think Uther is as safe of a craft as the others, although I'm sure there's going to be tons of people who just want to craft him to try and have fun with the OTK. That's what the game is about, after all. And then if we come down a little bit more, we find Shadow Reaper Anduin. So Andy here, he is sitting at a comfortable 55% win rate, and he has a impressive 65% played win rate, which means he's really the defining card of this deck right now. And you also don't see other. The only other card in Priest that's really coming up above him is actually the Obsidian Statue. So the Obsidian Statue is an amazing card for Priest decks. Um, but Shadow Reaper is actually, I mean, in terms of being the card that is played that really makes the deck, you're going to definitely be wanting both of these cards, the Statue and Shadow Reaper Engine. And then if we come down slightly more, we do finally find way down here the Lich King, who's at a 54% deck win rate and 56.5% played win rate. So, I mean, he's a neutral. So there might be specific decks that run him that have a much higher win rate than this. It's not like there's just one list that everyone's going off with this particular card, because it's a neutral, and with the taunt and with the passive card generation, there's a lot of different decks that might want to run him. And then if we get further down, we really don't see a lot else. We run into Hadronox, but Hadronox is way lower than anything else in Druid. So, I mean, although it's a positive win rate for a card, it's not actually necessary to craft, because Druid is basically better without it. And so then if we jump into Wild, hold on, first I should clarify, no, here, let's go to Wild. And so we're not going to see a lot of stuff from the new expansion quite yet. None of it is quite capable of breaking Secret Paladin and Pirate Warrior in Wild. These decks are really just dominating Wild, and have been, and will continue to do so for the immediate future. But if we eventually come all the way down here, I do want to observe down here Blood Reaver Gul'dan. So Gul'dan is not doing that well in Standard, but in Wild he's actually doing pretty well. He's 57% win rate, and his played is actually 67%, which is really good. And the thing to observe here is that in comparison to other Warlock cards, if we would have to come all the way further down here, and then finally we get down to Mal'Ganis, who's at 61% played win rate and 56% deck win rate, and Jaraxxus. So, our new Death Knight in Warlock is actually a good investment if you're thinking about playing Warlock in Wild. He is actually stronger than the older Warlock legendaries. And of course, our new Druid is still good here as well, although not quite the blowout that Ramp Druid is in Standard. He's down here somewhere. But yeah, that's my impressions of how to interpret this mess of data from the first few days. Of course, this is still very early in the expansion. And, it's still showing data from before the expansion was released. So there's a lot of ways that this data could change in the coming days, but usually this data is a pretty good indication of where the meta is right now. And if you're really just anxious to craft something but you don't want to get burned, it can be really helpful to look at and think about just a little bit. In fact, we can even come down, we can change it to just Knights of the Frozen Throne, just Legendary. And then we can see, yes, Morabi really is quite terrible, as many people probably expected. Blood Queen Lanethel is quite bad. Scourge Lord Garrosh is in fact the weakest of the Death Knights. And Rotface, I mean, people are going to try to make this deck work, but it hasn't really happened yet. And Valeera is not quite shining yet either. And in fact, even Archbishop Benedictus, games aren't really going to fatigue quite yet. People are winning by other means most of the time. So, there definitely are a fair number of weak legends in this set. But of the good ones, I mean, there's some really good legends up in here. So I hope this was informative, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Catch you next time.